Well, thank you, ladies, for joining tonight. I'm so happy to be here. So, my name is Paige. For those that don't know, I am a holistic wellness coach, and I decided to create this free workshop based on cultivating self love. And I kind of wanted to start with just sharing a little bit about my background and my story, and kind of why self love is so important to me and how it ties into like holistic wellness. So, a little bit about my story. I started back in my teenage years and into my early 20s. I was put on pharmaceutical drugs for, in high school, it was ADHD. And then my young adulthood, it was depression and anxiety. And I was on these medications for many years until my mid 20s when I just had enough pretty much at a point where I was like, I feel like this can't possibly be like what my life is going to be like for the rest of my life, where I'm told you have depression, this is a lifelong thing that you're always going to have, you'll always have to take this medication. I just wasn't okay with that. And I really felt like I was just being told who I am and what I was like. So I worked with a psychiatrist to come off those medications safely. And from there, I really started my own journey into holistic wellness and the natural approach to living with, depression and anxiety. So from there, I just took on my own path. And I share that to say that, holistic wellness looks at, physical health, mental health, emotional health, spiritual health. That also includes like nutrition, movement, all of that. And I really noticed when I look back that along my journey, all of it really came back to self love. So when it was, doing my workout routine, trying to lose weight, I realized it wasn't about losing weight. It was about loving myself, like my body and who I was, and accepting that. When it came to my emotions and my feelings, so the depression and anxiety, it was more about connecting back to myself, and honoring those feelings that I had, and not treating them like the enemy and looking at it as like something was wrong with me. There was never anything wrong with me. So it really all just came back to self love. So I'm just so passionate about it because, you know, I think society, from so long ago kind of tells us like what we need to look like, how we need to be, what our life needs to look like, what we should do, all of those things. And we really get lost in who we are, especially from a young age, right? When we're young and we're kids and we're just growing and learning about who we are and who the world is. It's like we're still figuring that out, but then we've got all of this society pushed on us. So it kind of can get lost. And so, yeah, I just think self love is so important, especially when it comes to wellness, because there's so many parts of wellness that self love is incorporated within. So, created this workshop. I'm sharing some of my tips and my ways that have really helped me along in my journey. I'm hoping they help you, or maybe just spark some insight, um, maybe just kind of make you think of things in a different way, a new perspective. So, yes, I'm so excited to share with you guys. And I kind of want to start first with like, what's the definition of self love, right? Self love to me is not, just saying like, I love myself, like, right? I love myself. Like, I think we all can say that, but do we truly feel that? And it's not just, going and getting our nails done or buying ourselves something nice. It's deeper than that, right? Those can be parts of self-love and self-care, but it's such a deeper emotional connection with yourself when you really cultivate that self-love within. So self-love is paying attention to yourself and what matters most. It's your mind, your body, and your soul, right? So that's the holistic approach: mind, body, and soul. It's showing yourself you matter, that you are worthy, and that you are beautiful. Knowing that the only person you need to please is yourself. That's what I feel like the true definition of self love is. And that can look different for everyone. But again, there's like core pieces when it comes to wellness and that mind, body, and soul connection that there's no denying those parts. Just it's what is that? What do those parts look like for each of us, right? When we cater and nurture those parts. So we're gonna kind of dive into that a little bit tonight. And I kind of think of it as when I think of self-love, you're going to notice a lot of the, topics that we talk about are all like connected. Because when you think of holistic health, it's the mind, the body, and the soul, which is the spirit, the heart, right? And when you think of that, it's all in your body. It's one vessel, right? It's all one. And so that's why I'm so passionate about holistic health, because holistic looks at all of that, mind, body, and soul. And so when you think of like self-love, there's so many parts of it. So, like we're going to talk about mental health, that's one part where self-love shows up. It's the physical health, that's another part where self-love shows up, the emotional, the spiritual. So, you're going to notice that a lot about what we talk about is kind of intertwined, which it's meant to be. So a lot of these areas just all connect, and it all comes back to nurturing that one vessel, yourself. So we're going to talk about mental health. We're going to talk about self-acceptance, boundaries, self-care, that inner voice that we all have, and then self-discovery. I think these are 6 really good areas that will kind of just highlight self-love in itself and kind of give you the idea based off the holistic approach. So foundations of self-love. And we're going to start with mental health. So this one is clearly based off my story, is near and dear to my heart. Very big mental health advocate. And, mental health does incorporate the depression, the low vibes when we're feeling low, when we're feeling stuck, anxiety, we're feeling anxious. It's our stress management, right? Both of those are incorporated with that. So I think really mental health comes down to is loving your mind. So when we're dealing with, depression and anxiety, it's what I've learned along the way is like, those are so normal. It's just finding the tools to work through them. So, right, I've shared that I've, had struggles with that in the past, depression and anxiety. It's not to say that I don't have those, I don't deal with depression and anxiety anymore. It's just I've found tools that have helped. And so when it comes to mental health and depression and anxiety, it's changing the perspective and really seeing it as part of you, right? And not something to shame away, to be, guilty of, to see as an enemy, that there's something wrong with you. So it's really loving the mind and loving all that, your mind has the capability to feel. And so I kind of want to share, okay, when it comes to mental health and self-love, well, what can we do to cultivate self-love when it comes to mental health? These are going to be some of the top tools that have worked so well for me and my clients. They're not in order, but I will say practicing gratitude would be my number one. This is so important. And I don't even think that I still to this day sometimes think when I'm, journaling my gratitude that I'm even like, oh, there's, is this even working sometimes? But it is on such a deep level. And you can practice gratitude in so many ways. One of the ways I like to do it is journaling. So whether it's the beginning of the morning or the end of the night or during the day, whatever you have the time, is really writing out things you're grateful for. And it can be big or small, it does not matter, because there's always something to be grateful for, always. And it can be something as, I'm just appreciative that I have a car. I'm grateful for my house, my job, my kids, my partner. It can be, grateful for this new outfit I bought myself today. Whatever it means to you, it's just finding gratitude in each and every day. And what that does is when we focus on the positive, our brain and our mind starts to look for more positive. So right then and there, if you're in a, if you're stuck in a low point of your life, focusing on the positive, it's not to say that you're ignoring anything that, you might be experiencing. It's not ignoring that, but it's always reverting back to, okay, I'm going through this, but what is something positive that I can also take from this? Like, what are some good things too that are also happening in my life, right? Because it's not always good or bad. There's always going to be something that you can be grateful for, even during a struggling time. There will always be something there. So practicing gratitude, however that works for you, I will say is such a huge part of mental health, and that will really lift you up. Um, Journaling, or even just verbally saying it, at the end of the day, picking out what you were grateful for that day, that is a huge tool. My next one would be journaling your thoughts. And this kind of ties into gratitude, right? That can be part of your journaling session, is writing out gratitude. But journaling your thoughts. So when it comes to like depression and anxiety, right? Anxiety, we tend to have like a lot of anxious thoughts where our minds racing. We have all these thoughts. We're thinking about the future, what I got to do, what I need to get done, what's coming up, all of that. What has worked really well for me and my clients is, at the end of the night, if you've got so many thoughts in your head that they're like taking over, is dumping it out on paper. So pen to paper, put your thoughts out on paper. The physical act of taking the thoughts from your head, from your mind onto paper, actually takes them out of your head and onto the paper. You'll start to feel like a release just by doing that in itself. Same with when you're feeling kind of down, and even when you're feeling good, is writing out those thoughts, because you would be surprised when you just start to write. It will start to flow, and you continue to write. And when you read back at what you've written, you'd be surprised what actually comes up. It's a great way actually to learn about yourself more too. So when you're kind of feeling low, you start just writing it out, whatever you're feeling, whatever comes to mind, and using that as a tool to go back and kind of see like where you were at, what stuck out to you. um that, and when you are feeling good, so that you can go back and be like, ooh, I was feeling really good at that time, why, and kind of be able to see from there. It's a great guideline to use. Another suggestion, I tool that I love, and honestly I wish I had done this so much sooner, but is working with a therapist. So um if you're somebody like, for me, I love using a therapist as a soundboard. I have a lot of thoughts in my head, and working with somebody to just hold space for you to kind of untangle all of those thoughts and work through it with you is a huge help. If you've got, some of us, a lot of us have childhood trauma or any type of trauma that we've been through, that we just need somebody, again, to hold that space and work through that for us and help us. So that is another great way if you're dealing with, mental health, and you're looking to improve it, and that you're looking for support. I 100% recommend reaching out for a therapist, finding one that works for you, where you feel comfortable enough to talk about the things that are going on for you. And then another one I would say is disconnecting from social media. So social media is great in so many ways, so many ways. It can also be triggering for some, or some of us at some points. If you're following certain people that don't make you feel good or trigger you, I would say, like, give yourself space from that, unfollow them. Like, that is just not good for your mental health. It doesn't mean that you can't ever follow them again, especially if it's a friend or family or whoever, but give yourself that space in between where, you have that break from following something that doesn't make you feel well, right? Again, it's coming back to your mental health and that self-love for yourself, with what's going to be good for you. And in terms of like disconnecting from social media too, it also means, like, when it comes to mental health, like, as much as social media is great, it can also be mentally draining. So give yourself time to, whether it's a couple of days, one day a week, maybe it's a whole week, a month, whatever fits like for your schedule and feels good to you, is like completely like stepping away from social media and seeing how you feel. Because just the mental taxing that social media can have on us, that we don't even realize, like just the scrolling can really affect our mental health. So those are some, tips that, again, have worked so well for me and clients, that I just wanted to share with you. Hopefully something popped up there that kind of gave you like a, ooh, maybe I could try that. Yeah. And so that brings me to the next foundation, which is self acceptance. So I like to say, you don't have to be perfect to love yourself. I tell myself this often as well. I think when it comes to self acceptance, you know, we tend to, some of us can be like, well, I'll love myself when I have like the body that I'm looking for, or I'll love myself when like I find the right partner. It's like always like not until we have something or we look some type of way or we achieve something, right? Um, it's always if we have more and not really accepting that who we are today, even if we are still growing, because we're always going to be growing in this lifetime, that we are still great the way we are. We are enough the way we are. There's no such thing as perfect. And we don't need to be perfect or have more to accept who we are today and love that part of ourselves, right? So some kind of how to's for self acceptance. Um, I would suggest one is figuring out your strengths, right? We all have strengths. There's no doubt about it. We all do. And I think sometimes when it comes to strengths, and so when you find out your strengths, it's such a boost in confidence and it can see yourself in a new light, right? Especially if you're unsure of what your strengths are, right? So when you start to learn what they are, you're like, oh my gosh, like, heck yeah, like I have this about me. I'm good at this, and that. And so that already in itself boosts us, and we become more connected to ourselves in that way. And when it comes to figuring out your strengths, if you're not sure what your strengths are, I recommend writing out what you know you're good at, or just like what you're good at, right? Maybe it's like, obviously, whatever type of job you have at the moment, there's something that you're good at. I mean, there's definitely something you're good at, but within that job, like writing out like some of the things you know you're good at for that job, right? Starting there and again, seeing what develops and what comes out. Like as you start writing, more and more will come through. Another suggestion would be reaching out to the people that know you, right? Your friends, your family, your partner, parents. Those are the people that know you the best. And they are absolutely going to be able to tell you what your strengths are. And the thing with that, it's not that we're looking to other people to tell us, like, what our strengths are or, how valuable we are. It's not like that. It's sometimes, I know for myself, including, it can be hard to know what we're good at because sometimes things come so natural to us that we don't even realize it's a strength. So asking people that know you best will really be able to tell you, like, hey, this is what I know you're really good at. And that will give you a huge insight to some of your strengths as well. A fun little story to share on that. So I, again, being so into self-love and just for anyone and everyone, I went to dinner with my girlfriends and I created this, I guess I'll call it an activity where I had made up these envelopes, and in all the envelopes had an index card, and each index card had one of our friends' names on it, right? So we had dinner, we're all at the table, and each person had an index card with a friend's name on it, each person at the table. And what I had everyone do is I said, on the index card for that friend's name, write what you find, what your strength, the strengths that you see within that person, and what you admire about that person, right? So we're all really good friends, and of course we have things to share. Of course, I admire my friends for so many different reasons, and likewise to myself. So I had us do that activity, and they absolutely loved it. I loved it because not only, I mean, for me, yes, I was able to see what strengths they thought they could see in me, but also I was able to give them the same. And we all, like, no one opened it then and there. We all took it home and read it later on. But, all of my friends said that it was, so insightful, and they really appreciated it because it was like vulnerable words that we shared with each other. But on top of that, like, I think a lot of my friends were able to see some strengths that they didn't even know they had. So again, reach out to people that know you. You don't have to do that activity, but again, text a friend, text a partner, whatever, and just ask them, what do you see that are my biggest strengths? I love that. So another tool would be accepting where you are right now. So this is pretty big. I kind of touched on it a bit that, if you are going through a rough time, we have them, ebbs and flows of life. We all have them. And so if you are at a low point, it's just accepting where you are and not, having shame or guilt for being where you are at that point, right? We know it doesn't last forever. It's going to pass, but just accepting that that is where you are. If you're maybe going through a breakup, maybe you lost your job, like that is okay. And just accept that that is the part of life. And there's nothing wrong with that. So again, just really accepting where you are and knowing that that is okay. Another one that I love is mirror work. So mirror work can be it can be uncomfortable at first, and that's because if you are so disconnected to yourself, and I share all of this as I was and still am, going through that, but mirror work is for me what I like to do. It's a full length mirror is like sitting in front of the mirror, and really you're looking at yourself as if you're looking at another person or a friend, and you're looking yourself in the eyes and you're telling yourself what you appreciate. For me, what I like to do is I like to tell myself that I love you. I love you, Paige, so much. I love you so much, Paige. And I'm looking into my eyes and I'm saying that. And again, this can feel awkward at the beginning. It can feel uncomfortable, but as you do it, it's a practice. So like anything that you practice over time, like although it might not feel in the moment, it feels weird and that it's not working. You have to think about like when a partner tells you that they love you, or a family member, somebody that means something to you, and they tell you they love you. How good does that feel? Right? It feels really good. So it's actually a shame that we feel weird when we tell ourselves that, right? When someone else tells it to us, like we feel so good. So practicing this so that you can, that is going to give you that complete like self-love, so that you actually love yourself, is practicing that in the mirror and telling yourself that you love yourself. And why you need that eye contact is, because you can't just like say it like you are the person. You don't have a text message that you can text yourself and do all of that. So when you do that mirror work and you're front to front with yourself and you're looking yourself in the eyes, it's making that connection deep within your soul. Like your body can feel it. And so again, uncomfortable at the beginning, but as you move through it, and I also suggest finding a word or an affirmation, which is my next part, is finding an affirmation or words or just whatever feels comfortable to you and resonates with you, right? So I use, I love you, Paige, but some other good ones are like, I love and accept myself just as I am. I am strong and capable person. I am more than enough. You can also, these affirmations can be used just in general when you're journaling. Maybe you're just reciting them throughout the day. But the thing with the affirmations, and some of these ones you can use is just, in the mirror, saying it back to yourself. Affirmations, you've really got to feel it, right? You can't just say it and be like, I am more than enough. It's like you got to feel it and believe it, and you are. So when you're looking in the mirror, is I am enough, and feel it with your whole body and your whole being, right? And again, if you have to keep doing this to allow yourself to believe it more and more, that's okay if it takes a couple of times. But when it comes to like any of these affirmations, really, if you're struggling, think about some of the things that you have succeeded with and the things that you've done recently that have made you feel good. Remember those things, so when you're reciting these, like you can feel it within, and within that it is true. So those are some tools that I absolutely love for self-acceptance, and I hope one resonates with you. The next foundation would be boundaries. So boundaries, cultivating healthy communication and boundaries in your relationship. So it's a give and take. Boundaries are just so important when it comes to relationships and getting to really know ourselves and where we stand. So a quote that I love that resonates so much is, how you love yourself is how you teach others to love you. So when you think about how you treat yourself, right? So if you treat yourself like crap, you're most likely going to tolerate someone that treats you like crap. But if you treat yourself with kindness and respect and love, you are not going to tolerate someone that treats you like crap, because you don't treat yourself like crap. So that quote really stands in how you love yourself. When you fully love yourself, you are teaching other people how to show up and love you. So what I love, and again, emotions, my favorite, like emotional health, love it, mental health, emotions, right? Anger and frustration are such great emotions to show us like what's going on, especially when it comes to boundaries, right? So if someone is frustrating you or did something that frustrated you, it's most likely showing you where there's a boundary for you that they've crossed, right? If you're getting frustrated because someone said something to you or they did something to you that you didn't like, that is showing you your boundary. That's showing you that you had a boundary, they crossed it. Maybe your boundary wasn't clear enough, but it's presenting it to you to show you. So again, that's back to our emotions and how useful they are, and they're here as our friend, not our enemy. So boundaries are huge when it comes to self-love. And the more we know our boundaries and create our boundaries, the healthier we have with ourselves, but then other people, because then they start to respect our boundaries. So some how-tos on boundaries: say yes when you mean yes and no when you mean no. So if someone's asking you to do a favor and you're feeling deep within you that you're like, I really don't want to do this favor. And, some of us can have that people pleaser where we feel bad if we say no, even though we don't want to, but then if we say no, we're going to feel really bad. I mean, that's where this all practice comes in, right? Where you acknowledge like that's how you're feeling. But if you truly don't want to do the favor for whatever reason it may be, when you say yes, even though you mean no, you're not holding your boundary, and you're also not like loving yourself to the way that you deserve. You're letting yourself down by saying yes when you really mean no. So honoring when you feel no is honoring that no. And even if you have to take baby steps to say like, no, I'm so sorry, I can't, like, there's no need to be sorry, but if that's the baby step you have to take to say the no, do it. But yeah, learn to use your voice. If something bothers you, learn to stick up for yourself. Again, if anger presents itself, frustration, it's just showing you where you have a boundary or where you need to place a boundary. So, you know, don't shame yourself or guilt yourself. Just know that, oh, wow, this is presenting itself because I need to create a boundary. I need to learn to use my voice and say, hey, what you just said to me really bothers me. So speak up when something bothers you. That is, this is something that is going to come in practice, because it can be uncomfortable, especially if you are a people pleaser or not used to saying no to people. It's just, it's going to be uncomfortable at first, but check in with yourself. Like, do you really want to do this? Yes or no, right? And then coming back to yourself. So my next foundation is self-care, which I feel like a lot of us are very familiar with, but I also think it's more of the self-care like I talked about earlier, like, oh, I get my nails done and I buy like a new outfit, which can be self-care. But I think self-care goes so much deeper. I think self-care is making the time to meet your needs as best you can, right? Sometimes you're not always going to be able to meet them. That's just how life is, but you're doing the best you can to meet them to your best ability. And that's what matters. And it's spending time on your hobbies, your interests, things that light you up, that fill your cup up, that bring joy. That's self-care, right? So if it is getting your nails done every 2 weeks, however long you go for getting your nails done, if that lights you up and makes you feel good, absolutely keep doing that, right? Some other hows, because again, with that holistic approach of mind, body, soul, like it's not just the physical material stuff, just buying stuff isn't going to, it can help us to the external extent of self-care, but like, what about the deep nourishing parts that we need for the self-care? So that's where like healthy food. So with the body, healthy food, right? Nourishment. Self-care or self-love is really knowing what foods make us feel good and feeding that to ourselves, right? So if we know there's a certain food that doesn't make us feel well, okay, let's focus on the foods that make us feel good. What are those foods? Most likely it's probably like fruits and vegetables and, meats, whole foods, things that, water, things that make us feel really good. So when you're in a self-love state, you are wanting to provide yourself with the food that makes you feel good. Same goes with movement, exercise, right? So self-love would not be, oh, I hate running, but I have to lose weight or I need to work out, so I'm going to run. That wouldn't be self-love. Self-love is, I want to move my body because my body wants to be moved, but I want to move it in a way that feels good to me. I love to do yoga. I'm going to do some yoga. Or I love to just go for a walk. That would be self-love. is going for doing movement that feels good to you. So it doesn't need to be something that is uncomfortable or you do not enjoy. Another one for body would be like a massage. Um, Sleep would be huge. Sleeping, getting full rest, nourishing your body with sleep is so important because that's going to affect so many other components, your gut health, your mental health, right? Again, it's all connected. So when it comes to body, I would say those are like top ones that when it comes to self-love is, checking in those areas for yourself. And then our mind, ways that we can show self-love in the mind is meditation. Meditation is a great way to slow down your thoughts, give yourself time with just you. I like to think of our thoughts of, I've used this analogy before where it's like little kids, right? Little kids, or any kids, mom, watch me do this, watch me do that, right? They want attention, they want to be seen, they want attention, they want to feel loved. I feel like it's the same with our thoughts, right? And not all of them, but I feel like we get these, all of us get them. I forget the statistic of like how many thoughts a person gets per day, but so many thoughts that we get creative ones too, we get loving ones. And I think sometimes we're so busy that we don't even allow those creative and loving thoughts to like sit and like actually be acknowledged, right? But they're like kids where they like look at me like, listen to me, listen to me. So when we meditate, we give ourselves that space to just sit, and you will be amazed once you start, showing up for the meditation, however that looks for you and time wise, but you will be amazed at what thoughts actually start to surface. I mean, in good too, like I can say personally that I've gotten some of the most creative like ideas through meditation, because again, I'm allowing myself to sit there and just be, and I'm not searching for the thoughts, but I'm allowing the thoughts to like be seen like the little kid wants to be seen. I'm sitting down and I'm like, okay, I'll watch you, that's fine, I'll watch you. And so they get to be seen, they get to show up. And so meditation, if you can get yourself to do that, even starting small, 5 minutes a day, just giving yourself that space. Another one would be reading a book. The mind loves to learn. The mind loves growth. So, whether it's like a self-help book or even a fiction, nonfiction, like the act of reading and your brain being able to read words has a lot of power and just a lot of growth in just that. You'd be surprised what you can, new words you learn, and just the full growth of reading a book. Okay. And then, sorry. So your soul. So some things for self-love and soul, some tools that you could do, I would say volunteering. So when you think of like the soul, the heart, the spirit, and what it craves, a lot of us crave, we're human beings, social connection. So we can get that through, it feels good to donate and volunteer. So if that makes your heart feel good, incorporate more of that into your life. If it's social events and you just thrive being social and having social outings, trying to incorporate more of that into your life. Same with nature. So nature makes us feel so good. There's so much healing benefits to that for the mind and the body, that just being out in nature, whether that's going to the beach, walking in the park, whatever that looks like for you, time in nature will really fill the soul as well. And then, again, it's all connected, but I put meditation or praying. So if you are someone praying, if you're, praying isn't in your practice, intention setting. So setting an intention for your day, for an activity, or when you're meeting up with people. Again, all those parts there will have a huge connection for your soul. So those are just some how-tos when it comes to mind, body, and soul in the self-care department. These are just a few. There's so many that you could do, but I hope some of those stuck out to you or kind of sparked some interest. And then next we have the inner voice. So this kind of again, ties into mental, emotional health, but inner voice, it's really changing the way you talk to and about yourself. So we all have that inner critic mind that, likes to, put us down or bring on the negative thoughts. So when it comes to self-love and the inner voice is really working on the voice in your head. So I will just say that everyone has that inner critic. I think that's comforting to know that like we're not the only one. Like you're not alone when you have that inner critic that puts you down at times, right? We all have that part of us. And negative thoughts, which this is like what I like to talk about too, is ants, which is automatic negative thoughts. Again, that's something we all have too. So automatic negative thoughts are negative thoughts that just come automatically. It's almost like you're like, where did that come from? Who is that? That's not something I would think of, but they just show up, and it's a natural part of us. It's from, way back when we were hunters and gatherers, and we used it as a form of protection to always be alert and ready for anything that might come our way. But it's still instilled within us, and we still get negative thoughts. But it's really recognizing that, those thoughts are going to come up, but most of those thoughts are not you, and you do not need to believe them. And you shouldn't believe them because, a lot of them, just like the inner critic, are there to kind of bring you down. So a tool to do that, to work on that, is reframing your thoughts. So when any of these like critic thoughts or negative thoughts appear, it might be something like, oh, I'm so stupid for doing that. It's like the little things too, right? Like we don't even recognize that sometimes, like, we drop something, we're like, oh my God, how could I be so clumsy? Like your body is picking up on all of those words that you're saying. And whether you realize it or not, it's internalizing that. And so when we start to reprogram how we're speaking to ourselves, we start to reprogram how we're thinking about ourselves. So it can start with verbal too. So if you say something like, oh, I'm so stupid for doing that, first is the awareness of like, oh, whoa, I just had a thought come through. I don't really like catch yourself. I didn't really mean that. I obviously am not stupid, because you're not. Now, so be aware of it. Now reframe it. To something like, I did the best that I could. So even if you're just mentally reframing it, or out loud you're reframing it, is that right there is going to start to create a new pathway in your mind. And so when it starts to show up again, you're going to again challenge it and reframe it again. Same with the automatic negative thoughts. When they show up like, oh, I'm not good enough, I look so ugly today, they don't even like me. Those thoughts that come in, question them, right? Especially if you know that that's like, that it's not that they don't like you. They do like you. They're your friends, right? So if that thought's coming in, question it and ask it, why are you showing up? Is that even true? And if it's not true, because they're your best friends and they like you, challenge that thought and say, well, you know what? They actually do like me. And, challenge the thought, and not like push it away, but like challenge it and then shut it down because it's not true. So again, being aware that those thoughts do exist in all of us, and when they come up, is reframing them. And then another tool is giving grace for your mistakes. This is huge and connected to our inner voice, right? That critic that wants to put us down. When you mess up or it's not good enough, it's really giving yourself, self-love is giving yourself that grace that you can make mistakes, that you're only human and mistakes are absolutely allowed. And if anything, welcomed, right? Because we learn and we grow from our mistakes. So give yourself grace when you make those mistakes. There is nothing wrong with you. You are perfectly great the way you are. It's just, giving yourself grace in those times. And then again, just not believing all the thoughts you hear and think. Those thoughts are not always you. Again, they're there to protect you, but you kind of talk to them as a friend, like, hey, thank you for protecting me, but that's not true. And I'm not going to believe that. And you move on. So I hope those helped you. It's a very big topic for me that I love to talk about. And then we have self-discovery. So self-discovery when it comes to self-care is learning your likes and your dislikes, developing goals, interests, and hobbies that make you happy. So, self-discovery, it's like, it kind of can sound silly of like, oh, I'm discovering who I am. But, again, it comes back to what I was saying at the beginning of like society pushes so many beliefs and yeah, they push so many beliefs on us that it's like we end up like as like I just think of like middle school and high school, right? Where it's like we're told what the trends are to wear for clothes. We're, told like what to like or what school to go to, all those things. We're like told what to do and what to like that like then you're an adult and you're like, what do I do? Like who am I? What do I want? What are my passions? What are my goals? So self-discovery is one of my favorite. And again, that's a lifelong thing that you will always be doing, which is so beautiful and so fun, because we just get to discover and learn more and more about ourselves, which the more you learn about yourself, the more you just love yourself, and it's a full circle. So some tools that I suggest for self discovery that have been so useful for me and my clients as well is first, it sounds so simple, but writing out a list of things that you like and you dislike. Um, and things like obviously more of a focus on the things that you like. But it's nice to see a list of what you don't like because especially if you're unsure, like I think some of us think we know what we like and we dislike, but again, back to that writing, you'd be so surprised what ends up coming out when you like give yourself the time to be like, all right, I'm going to sit here and write down what I do like. And you just start flowing, you'd be amazed at what comes out. So creating a list, it sounds silly, you might think you know what you like, but I just trust me on this, create a list what you like, and that can be anything from like a color to an activity to, whatever it may be. I'll share something big that happened for me that I discovered through journaling and doing these activities. I've done them all myself. Is I realized I don't like large crowds of people. I don't like big settings with a lot of people. I like very intimate settings. So when it comes to friends, when it comes to people I don't know, any type of setting, I like intimate settings. And I honestly didn't know that about myself for the longest time. I just noticed that like when I was around a lot of people, like that I just felt uncomfortable and it was like overwhelming for me. And then when I did activities like writing out, hey, I really liked spending time with like three of my close friends. I was able to learn that about myself. So give it a try and you'd be surprised what you see. Writing that list of what you like and what you dislike. Um, and another thing, if you're into it, is human design or astrology. This has been super insightful for me. It might not be something that you practice, and that's okay. But human design, I would say, is like super specific to the individual. So I've learned so much by learning my human design. And for me, I like to say it as like, and this goes for astrology too, is like when I'm reading something about myself, I don't read it and say like, oh, that's who I am. Oh, okay. Again, back to like society telling us who we are. So, oh, you're a Gemini, this is who you are. It's like we've got to form some type of like we use it as a guideline, but we don't want it to tell us who we are, right? We want to help it guide us and yeah. So when I look at human design and astrology, the way I see it is I'll read something and I'll be like, oh my gosh, wow, that is me because I already know myself and I've gotten so close to myself that when I read something, especially when I started getting into human design, I was like, holy crap, how does this know me so well? Everything that it was saying, I was like, wow, that I resonate so much with that. So again, I wasn't using it as a guideline to tell me who I was, but I was using it as a guideline to, really open up to learn more about something that I already knew in myself. So I recommend that if that's something that you're into. And then another suggestion would be trying out a new class, right? So when it comes to self-discovery, when we're trying to discover like what do we like, what do we not like, try out class. So if there's been something that a class or a meetup or a group that's really kind of been intriguing to you and you're maybe you haven't been like super excited, but it's been something that's like, oh, maybe I would want to try that like pasta cooking class. That sounds kind of fun. Or, a Zumba class sounds fun. Or I kind of would want to try that. Getting yourself out there to just try different things, right? And it's okay if you don't like it because guess what that's showing you? Something that you don't like. And that's great because now you have another thing that you don't like, but you tried it because what that's going to do is you're going to keep trying out things and then you're going to find the things that you do like. So again, another example for me, I never knew this about myself, but I tried, so it was years ago. I went hiking and I got offered by some friends, yeah, you want to go hiking? And I was like, this was when I lived up in Massachusetts where they had hikes. So mountains that you could actually hike up. And I got invited to do a hike, and I'm like, all right, well, like, I know I like being outside. Don't know if I'll like hiking, but sure, I'll go. I fell in love with hiking. I just went on a vacation where all I did for a week was hiked. I absolutely love hiking. And I found that out because I said yes to something. I tried out something new, and I found something about myself that I never even knew. So try something new, whether it's a class, whether it's a meetup, you never know what you'll discover about yourself. And that I want to leave you with, this quote is, love yourself first and everything else will fall into place. So I liked this quote because it makes me think of the fact that when we focus on loving ourselves, setting our boundaries, accepting ourselves, all of that, everything else in our life will fall into place. Our relationships will show up healthy again with the boundaries. Our mental health will follow suit. Everything, once we focus on ourselves and give ourselves the love that we need, everything else in life will just fall into place. I really do believe that. And I've seen it firsthand that the more and more I focus on myself and just loving myself, nurturing myself, everything that I can do, the better my relationships are, the better I see life, the more excited I am for life and my opportunities and just my friendships, everything just shows up even better. So that's why I'm so passionate about self-love, is I feel like that's, the core of it all. When we really can focus on that, you'd be surprised at what else shifts in your life for the best. So I leave you with that. I thank you all for coming today, and I was so excited to share this with you. If you have any questions or anything that I talked about that you wanted some more questions or whatever information on, absolutely reach out to me. I have my social media. It's the.whole.page. That's my Instagram. And I also have a Facebook page, but reach out to me. Totally ask me anything you want. I will open this up now in case anyone had any questions about anything that I talked about, and, maybe you had a question or you wanted to talk more on it. I will open that up. Let me just